December, the 1-7, the 17. The days are counting down. The news is getting more and more interesting, particularly here in Minnesota, where individual business purveyors are disagreeing with the governor. It's an interesting time, both in our world and in our local community. So where will it go? But this is CHAT CANNA, and I have some interesting news about hemp because that's the world that I live in, and I live in it every day. And we are anxiously working and getting through winter and waiting for spring because it's really an exciting world of hemp. And this is a baby world. If you think about evolution of wheat or sugar, wheat, of course, hundreds of years. It was planted by the first settlers in America as they started to move to the Midwest. Sugar beets from about 1900, sunflowers from 1959-60, canola out in North Dakota since then, soybeans since then, as they made soybeans that could grow in less and less time through the summer. Corn coming up in this part of the country, the same thing, as they made varieties that could grow and produce a crop in the limited time that we have for the summer. But now we're talking about hemp. Literally 5 years. We're just in the baby steps of having this legally. Of course, lots of illegal stuff has been going on for 50 years or more, but all of that in the efforts to make THC, TCH, I'm not dyslexic, THC, the number one element in the plant, having it dripping with it. And of course, for those of us that are in the hemp business, that's antithesis. We don't want that. We want the good old-fashioned hemp plant that's going to grow all of the other kinds of things that were originally in hemp with the least amount of THC that we can get. And ultimately, as we go through some more generations here, you're going to see that almost gone. But that's what our stories today are on CHAT CANNA, and we hope that you'll stay with us and follow along with those stories, because we have some interesting news out of Washington in one of our stories today. And we also have a story about how hemp is becoming a real grown-up plant, or at least the products that come from hemp are becoming grown-ups. So those are our two big stories for you today, and we hope that you'll stay with us here on CHAT CANNA for this December 17th day. Snow overnight here, maybe this much, somewhere in that. But you know, when you're tracking, when I walked over to the video studio today, you can see my tracks, and something's going on, because today the garbage man came, and he's every other Tuesday guy. So something's happening in the scheduling as they're making their Christmas holiday squeeze it up and make it all work kind of plans. So what do we got going for you today? Well, we have two stories, and the first one I want to talk to you about is the Chicago Mercantile, you know, has been around for a long time. And let me tell you a story that goes way back to the 30s. 1 mile away from where I am, this is the number 2 Reitmeyer Historic Farm right here. This was bought in 1919 by my great-grandfather for my grandfather, and at the time his 3 children. And that would have been my oldest uncle, Arnold, and my father, and then the next uncle, which would have been Edward. Is that right? Yeah, I guess that's right. In the line, or would Mita have been here? I'm not sure. But anyway, there were 3. The only reason I know that is because number 4 was born here, and that would have been Uncle Marvin. Uncle Marvin was born in the second bedroom in this house. And of course, they're all gone now. All of my uncles passed away with the departing of my Uncle Mike, the very youngest one, who was 17 and some years younger than my dad this recent spring. We only have one aunt left, and we wish her well. Aunt Joyce is 91 or so, and she is one of the people that is in a nursing home right now. And so our thoughts are with her every day as we are going through what we're going through right now. But anyway, back in 1919, this was purchased. And my dad was 4 years old at the time. But in the 30s, down at the main place, it was a multiple profit stream farm, and every little stream helped to keep the family in business. And one of the streams that they had was turkeys. They raised turkeys, and to make money on them, they harvested them and they packed them in barrels, the very same barrels that you see liquor now on television, the 55-gallon liquor or wine barrels that you see. They weren't plastic like the cheap ones that you see now, but the wooden barrels that Cooper's made. And they sealed them up on the top, and they iced them, of course. They put the turkeys in there and iced them, and brought them over to the railway station, and they put them in cool cars, and they paid to ship them to Chicago, to the Chicago Mercantile. And from that, they then went in a lot and were put up for sale, and there was bidding on them. And the bigger grocers or the distributors to grocers would bid on them. They would open them up and look at them, and they knew what the prices they could get in the retail stores were, and they had to get their little margin in between. And one year when they did that, and of course, this was all kind of done on the honor system, because my family bought the barrels, did all the work of raising the product, packed them all in there, sent them down there, and then waited for the profit. I hate doing that. That's from that show. Profit to come back. Well, one year, profit didn't come back. A bill came back. There was not enough money in the sale at the Chicago Mercantile to pay for the shipping down there. That's what the birds raised at the time. And this, of course, these were the times that brought the rise of the Farmers Union, the Farm Bureau, later, decades later, the NFO, the National Farmers Organization, because, farmers couldn't live like this. A farmer in Minnesota couldn't take the risk that his turkeys were not going to sell down in Chicago. Why raise them then? Why even do that? Better to, raise them here and sell them for whatever the going price was that a lady in Crookston or Grand Forks would pay for a turkey, rather than to do all that and take that kind of risk. They had to have collective bargaining, and that's what came out of it. But so a long story to tell you about the Chicago Mercantile Exchange has been there for, I would say, probably now 100 years. And with that 100 years, yep, see, that's how you keep this. A side note, but buy one of these if you want to keep your cat off your Christmas table or anything like that. And after you spray him up close a couple times, just the sound of the psst coming out of this will make him run for the hills. And he will absolutely learn what he can and cannot go on really quickly. So right now, today, the big news is that they have made way. They have allowed for hemp to be listed on the Chicago Mercantile. This is a big step. This takes hemp out of the backyard, pocket to pocket, grower to buyer place, and puts it in a place where there is a stable price for it that you can look to. Just like when you hear on the markets, if you're traveling, even if you're a city folk, if you're traveling through the Midwest, and in the morning on the radio, they're talking about the markets. They're telling you that even pork bellies, by the way, when they mean a pork belly, they mean a live pig, a live walking pig is what a pork belly is. But they're telling you what the agreed upon price that you can expect if you have a pork, or there's about 7 or 8 or 10 layers of cows, from the very best that goes for prime beef. When you pay $100 when you go to some of those steakhouses in New York or Ruth's Chris, the cow that generates that, to what's called a canner and a cutter, and that's the beef that goes into Campbell's soup, because it's really tough and it's really old. It might have been a mother cow that gave 4 or 5 calves in her life, and stood and gave milk for her life. And at the end of her life, she is sold to become and harvested to become a canner and a cutter. And the beef is just, it's not marbled very well, and it's lived quite a few years, and so it's kind of tough. If you were to just harvest her and make steaks out of it, you wouldn't find very much enjoyment out of it. But it put into soup and cooked for some hours, it's as good a beef as you can get anywhere, and it has a purpose in life, and that's becomes canner and cutter. Bologna bulls, another thing. Bulls that have been around a long, long time, but they're called bologna bulls because they can be ground up and made into hot dogs, and that kind of a purpose. And it has a very good purpose, and it has a value different than prime, choice, select, all of the different layers and cuts. All this is all set and done on markets around the United States and around the world. And the big market for grains is the Chicago Mercantile. Hemp now is going to be listed up there, and we will see how it's going to come out and how they're going to be, which kinds of hemp. I'm sure you're going to have an industrial hemp for the stems and stalks, which will be, of course, remember we talk about the inside is the hurd and the outside is what goes for cloth and paper and everything's like that. And then the seeds, we'll see if there's a CBD price to that. But once it's up there, you can start trading futures, options, cash, over-the-counter markets. So there will be a value to the product. And that value will be set that if you end up with 3 truckloads of it, you know that it has a certain value. And if you think the price is going to go up in February, you can bet against it. There will be people that will be taking bets, short bets and long bets. If you are in the market, you know all about that way more than I do. But that legitimizes the product, and that's the big news. That takes us out of being a backwoods product to being real. And everything is on the Chicago Mercantile. There is walnut wood up there, or mahogany. There's cotton. There is just every kind of thing that's up there. They say there's going to be CBD biomass, crude hemp oil, CBD distillate, isolate, and CBG products. Now remember, CBG is in the plant that you're raising for CBD, like 1% of CBD. It's a tiny little amount, but it's way more than 100 times more valuable than CBD is. And of course, now they're trying to raise plants that have more CBG in them because it does better and more wonderful things to you. So here we go. We're on the Chicago Merc. It's going to change the world. It's a great thing. That's story number 1 today. Story number 2 today, Kentucky Senator Rand Paul. Now remember, Kentucky is the state that got this signed off to make hemp a legal product in the United States. So we have to salute Kentucky. If you're in the hemp business, everybody should have a thank you, Kentucky little banner up over their office door. And now Senator Rand Paul, I always want to say Paul Rand. Rand Paul has introduced legislation. It's probably not going to go anywhere, but it's the start. And every person that's involved in hemp, I don't care if you're a farmer, if you're a producer, if you're a buyer, if you're a retailer, if you're a shipper, if you have anything to do, you should write a letter of support to him and to your local senator to make some noise. He is trying to get it raised from a THC level, legal level of 0.3 to 1%. And that would certainly change our ability to be working with different varieties and strands as we are trying to stabilize varieties and brands in the marketplace, because this 0.3 is ridiculous, and it was just chosen by some people in glass towers because they read a news article not a news article, even a paper that a guy wrote suggesting that 0.3 might be a place to set it. He had no foundational background for that. He had nothing written up about why it should be that. He just picked it out of the air, literally just said, well, 0.3. We now know that that was I can't think of the adjective for it, but just egregious. It was just the wrong choice. 0.5 would have been better. It's 0.6. But now, as we've been in this a few years, they realize that products that are at 0.1 are of no interest for anybody that's in the THC world, that's in the marijuana world. They're looking at 25%. They're pushing for 30% THC products. They'll probably be even higher as they move along over the years. They could care less about 3%, let alone 0.3 or 1. Excuse me. You can see how excited I get about this. Probably this bill isn't going to go anyplace, but at least in Washington, they are now coming to their senses and opening the door so we can stop the guys. 7,000 acres this last year that got destroyed because it was past 0.3. But it wasn't like marijuana. It was like 0.4 and 5 or 6, 0.6. Just ridiculous. Testers can be off that far. Bad testing methods, bad selection in the field, picking all the good stuff in the field rather than picking all over the plant. So a tester that's just ticked or having a bad day can do this to a farmer. So I think you can see that this is a logical thing for them to do in Congress. We're asking them to be logical about it. Paul's bill would also add a requirement that the hemp shipments be accompanied by certificates saying the product is legal. The Texas Commissioner Sid Miller, who himself is a hemp grower, has called on Congress to do it. So, there's other people that are involved and pushing for this. Will they do it? Will they get it done? Please, 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 you guys out there. I'm a voice crying in the wilderness. I realize that. But if everybody wrote a letter, everybody, both to Senator Rand Paul and to your local senators and everybody you can reach and say, please, please consider this. This is not a big deal. It's not changing the world. There shouldn't be two sides to this. It's all about awareness and education. Let's just get this done. Let's just do this. Let this industry thrive. There's nothing, in my opinion, tell me something that's bad that's going to come from this industry, other than it's going to be competitive for the cotton industry. But tell me something that's bad from competition. There's the old joke about one lawyer in a town dies, two lawyers in a town, and they both get rich. Because they have two players that are willing to pay the lawyers money. But as that happens, you're saying, well, then they're just giving the money to the lawyers. No, they're not. They are in competition with each other for a new product, for disagreements in business, whatever. But the winners or the competition in doing that makes for more business. It makes for more economic development. It makes for something good. And that's what this would do with the hemp business. And so that's the end of my little diatribe or rant or whatever you want to call it today. But I don't think it is. It's an encouragement. Send this video to every legislator that we are asking you, we are begging you to consider this. Consider the source of where 0.3 came from. We understand that you make your legislative decisions based on advice. No senator or legislator can be a genius in all of the things that come across your desk. In this case, please take the advice of the people who are in the business. I have not found anybody in the business who says, oh no, 0.3 is fine. It's okay. It's not. It's something that we jumped into too fast due to the anxious speediness that we wanted to get the industry going. And now we need a change. And unfortunately, in this particular situation, you guys are the ones that need to change it. And we beg of you to do this and let us thrive. Let us show you what the hemp business can do for the automobile business, for the medical business. Oh, it might be not so good for the medical business because we do create some products that are really nice over-the-counter things to make people feel a little calmer and a little happier and having a little better day. Not magic, just a little better. Think what it can do for the paper industry. Think of what it can do for the housing industry. Think of what it can do for industry after industry. We ask you to consider that. That's our Chat Canna show for today. Ace would like to say thank you very much. We will see you again on Monday for the last series of shows for the Christmas week. Until then, everybody, have yourselves a great weekend. Get out and do your last Christmas shopping and make sure you get to the post office today. See you on Monday.